Good to have you with us on this Thursday morning. I'm coming to you from the land of weather freakouts. We're in a blizzard warning here in Washington, D.C., and you'd think we're on the verge of a nuclear bomb that's getting ready to go off. I don't know. Maybe I've lived in Minnesota too long. Okay, so you're going to get a foot of snow. Big deal. I mean, here, I should actually go and make it public in front of some elected officials here that throwing salt out on the street doesn't do squat when it comes to better driving conditions. You need to throw sand down. Wherever I've ever lived in the North Country, the first thing they do is throw sand at every intersection so when people go to stop, there's not any fender benders. I'm not kidding you. On the news last night here, there must have been like 1,000 accidents. I'm walking home last night from the TV studio over to the hotel, and bingo, there's one right in front of me. I said, there you go. A little sand on the ground there. Nothing would have happened there. That's what it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just exemplifies how they can't figure out anything in Washington. I don't know. I thought sand would take care of it all. All right, now I'm going to focus again on the issue in Michigan here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Good to have you with us. Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you this. Yes, it is Snyder. I'm going to take it a step further. It's also President Obama. I remember 3 years ago doing this story saying that Detroit needed federal help. And I went back and listened to one of my old commentaries on this, and you'll find it if you want to archive it out. The fact of the matter is I was purporting when I was doing the Ed Show that the federal government needs to step in and help the city of Detroit because this could snowball and who knows where this privatization is going to go. Anybody going to take my phone call in Flint, Michigan today? It's like an I told you so moment. So I'm going to go back even further. I want to talk to the man who ran against the now infamous governor in Michigan. It's Virg Bernero, our friend who is the mayor from Lansing, Michigan. He saw this coming. He knew exactly what Snyder was going to do to the state, and now look where we are. Virg, good to have you with us.
Great to be with you, Ed. You're so right about it.
Let's go back to that campaign. What kind of wasn't Snyder talking about privatizing everything he got his hands on?
Well, he came from the private sector, and his campaign was Michigan needs a nerd. And the people voted for this notion of a businessman who could run the state. And I think part of the problem is that he, from a business mentality, he believes that you appoint somebody, you delegate, and then you just support that person. You know, you the business model, you get the best person you can find, and then you back them up. And they made critical mistakes along the way, and it's a top-down autocratic approach, Ed. As you can imagine, like business runs, I mean, you have chieftains, you have vice presidents, you have division heads, and they go out, they give orders, and people follow those orders. In government, it's a democracy, and you have buy-in, you have consensus, and we don't do anything really in private in government. I mean, an elected mayor would never have done this. This came from an autocratic, monarchical, a czar-like leader who is the emergency manager appointed directly by the governor. But the problem is the governor isn't following the day-to-day like a mayor would be. And a mayor who was going to make a change from Detroit water to the Flint River, it would have been a big public spectacle. Every I would have been dotted. Every T would have been crossed. The press would have been all over it. And so there were several mistakes along the way. At this point, the state it's a massive debacle. It is a huge, huge problem. It's becoming a human tragedy. It will be a tragedy for the city as the exodus to the city has begun, the exodus from the city. They took a city that was on its knees, Flint, Michigan, and they kicked him in the teeth and put him on the floor. They've turned Flint into a third world travesty, essentially. But you have to look at not just the immediate, like you say, you got to go back, but you really have to look at the emergency manager law. They say power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
That's what I was going to ask you. This was all set up when the Republican legislature in Michigan passed a law that gave the governor the executive authority to appoint someone of a position of authority, city manager or manipulator, whatever you want to call it, to go into a municipality and undercut all local elections and really be a czar to turn everything around the way they want to. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. And again, that's a corporate model. If you think about it, this is the corporatization of our democracy. And the idea that it pushes aside the city council, pushes aside the mayor, the elected mayor, and gives this person really a complete autocratic power. And the thing is, it's complete authority without accountability, Ed. This is the key. I mean, I talked to the mayor of Benton Harbor here yesterday in Washington at the mayor's conference, and Benton Harbor was taken over, and now the emergency manager is gone. And guess what? They're facing lawsuits from the actions that the emergency manager undertook. And now the city is on the hook. Those cities should be indemnified. We need standards. We need accountability. And I'm working with the U.S. Conference, by the way, for us, since nobody else is going to do it, for the mayors to demand and push an agenda that includes accountability and indemnification protection for the cities. If the state's going to come in and make all the decisions, the state should be held accountable for those decisions.
Absolutely.
And of course, they're going to be held accountable for this debacle.
Here we are now. We've got Governor Snyder apologizing, trying to make a wrong like this politically okay. Here it is.
To begin, I'd like to address the people of Flint. Your families face a crisis you did not create and could not have prevented. To you, the people of Flint, I say tonight, as I have before, I am sorry and I will fix it. No citizen of this great state should endure this kind of catastrophe. Government failed you, federal, state, and local leaders, by breaking the trust you placed in us. I'm sorry most of all that I let you down. You deserve better. You deserve accountability.
What do you make all of that, Virg?
Well, I appreciate that he apologized, but if it's not going to be empty words, Ed, then we have to see actions. My motto has always been deeds, not words. Deeds, not words. And when he talks about accountability, let's start with the guy who did this. Let's start with the EM. Let's start with the emergency manager who made the decision. He got a promotion and a raise. He went from Flint, now he's running Detroit schools. Maybe he can do for the children of Detroit what he's done for Flint.
Mm-hmm.
How do you accountability? This is typical corporate accountability. There is none. Has Wall Street been held accountable for the debacle that the terror that they've rained on our cities and on our country? No. So when he talks about accountability, let's start with the guy who made it happen. Let's go back, and he's still at work, and he has not been held accountable. The emergency manager, and then let's go to the emergency manager law, which allows an appointed autocrat to walk all over the people and the elected officials. The mayor of Flint is here, Karen Weaver. She's competent. She's a good person, and she is not empowered to run that city.
She's in Washington?
Pardon?
She's in Washington?
Yes. She was here. I don't know if she's here today.
And you're in Washington?
Yes.
And the legal ramification is now the conversation that's out there between the mayors, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Ed.
The legal ramification of all of this is now circulating in conversation with the mayors, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Again, you have the tragedy, you have the immediate issues. As mayor, of course, Karen Weaver is faced with the day-to-day. I mean, how does she care for the people? How does she get them water? How do they take care of their families? I mean, water is one of the basic elements of life. Yeah. And so she's got to deal with the day-to-day. But we hear, and she agrees, that we need to look at the emergency manager. We need to look at the trail of tears with no personal repercussions that the emergency manager was allowed to leave so that this never happens again. But this will be a continuing saga, Ed. Again, they've essentially created, by taking water out, you've essentially created third world conditions, and this was a city where the emergency manager was supposed to go in and help them get back on their feet. How are you possibly, when I think about what she faces, I mean, here I am trying to build a great capital city in Lansing, and, we've stopped the flow. We've stopped the exodus of people, which is the first thing. Our cities in Michigan are ailing. Too many of our cities are the holes in the donut instead of the hubs of the wheel. And the state should be helping us to build and to grow. How do you grow a city where the water isn't there? I mean, they've got restaurants close to businesses that are close to failure because of this. And you think about renters who have an immediate option to go and leave and go elsewhere. This could be it is a devastating blow. You really need a Marshall Plan. I mean, here we've been doing nation building around the world. We're going to need nation building, city building right here in Flint, Michigan.
Virg, I got to catch up with you today for a TV crew. Are you leaving town today, or what are you doing?
I am leaving tomorrow at noon.
All right, my man, you're going to hear from us. We got to talk more about this. I'm not going to let this go because in some strange way, this story can do the 49 other states a real favor.
You are right on. Ed,
this is what you can't let happen.
This is an indictment of so many things. And by the way, this part of this is about infrastructure, because the fact of the matter is, if Flint's infrastructure, like many aging cities, was in better shape, and we need help from the state and the feds, and there was talk years ago about a second stimulus that was going to be for infrastructure. And if that had happened, and Flint was able to, over the years, replace their sewer lines, their water lines like we have in Lansing. We've done this over a period of 10 years. They wouldn't be in this position, but many cities are vulnerable to something like this because of the aging infrastructure.
All right. We'll be in touch. Virg, you're great.
Thanks so much.
So we need more mayors like you across America, more leaders that aren't afraid to speak up and tell it like it is. And this is, in many respects, an irreversible situation, but it is also a model of what we cannot allow happen. And this is crazy. Snyder actually thought he should be president of the United States.
Could you imagine? Thank you, my friend. Really appreciate it, Ed. You're a great American.
You bet. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
This is Ed Schultz.